Hello everyone, welcome to episode 5 of the Shed End View podcast. My name's Gareth McCullough.
And I'm Ally Mackenzie.
And that's an intro we swore we wouldn't do after the last episode, but it's been that long that we decided to go for it anyway. We've obviously been away for a while, a few things going on in work lives and things like that, so we will run through the last group of matches. I think we've 4 or 5 matches.
Sorry, when you say work-wise, what do you mean?
I started a new job and you're busy.
So Gareth McCullough of Cool FM now, I have to say.
Of who?
Of Cool FM.
No, do the jingle.
Cool FM.
Yeah, that's the jingle he was doing to me last Friday night after the match last Saturday, whatever it was. Friday night.
So yeah, your appearance fee has gone up considerably since last week. It's gone from a Lucozade to what, like a Fanta or something?
Yeah, something like that. Whatever's more expensive, I'll take that. Tommy, where's my rider? But yeah, we've 5 games to sort of to cap off from the last time we were on air, and we'll obviously look forward to this weekend's massive game away to Ards, top of the table clash. And despite how probably indifferent our form's been over the last few weeks, if we win Friday night, we go back top of the league. So we'll take a run through the last 5 games and just very quickly before we get on to our half-season review and then looking forward to the Ards game. So I suppose the best performance, or arguably the best performance of the last few weeks, was away to Anna, 3-0. I'm not sure you can remember. I think you might have been slightly worse for wear. Again, it seems to be a running theme. I wasn't at it because I was actually away at a wedding. But I mean, by all reports, it was meant to be, arguably our best performance of the season.
Yeah, I think so. And away Ally came out again, and he likes a Friday night. But it definitely was the best performance of the season, and it was kind of everything that the way we started off the season was kind of exactly how we started that game against Anna. We took the lead very early on, and just never looked like it was going to go anywhere else. But 3 points for us. This was the first time actually up to Anna. It was a great place, great setup, lovely people, very friendly, and we had a fantastic support that night. I think there was maybe well over 120, maybe more. We filled that away end, and there was plenty of singing and shouting done and created a great atmosphere. But on the pitch, we were just fantastic. There was some cracking goals to talk about. It was good to see Dingo get back on the score sheet as well. Shades of Ronaldinho against England 2002. Was it a goal or was it a cross? But yeah,
it was definitely a goal.
Oh, it was a goal. Was it a shot or was it a cross? But yeah, that was probably the highlight. And at that point, you think, okay, that's us back. That's us. We're flying. Let's get a bit of consistency, and then obviously just don't continue.
Yeah, and I think that night was the first game that John McGovern played after he got notification that he was going to get called up for Northern Ireland under-21s, which we'll touch on very briefly later. And he scored as well, so it was a great week for him. I mean, look at the other win. So we've had in the run of the last 5 games, which was away to Institute, probably just under 2 weeks ago now. I know you weren't at that one, so I can run through that game. One of those big Brandywell pitch, great service, should suit us for playing football on the way we like to play football. Very similar to Anna, I suppose, just a bigger service. Institute basically had one chance in the first half, and to be honest with you, probably about one chance until the last 5 minutes, where they put on a bit of pressure, which it should never have got that stage. We should have been out of sight well before that. They scored a goal which could very easily have been avoided. The boy stood off the guy, and then Stevie Maguire, as I repeatedly told him that night when we were all out for a few beers, was too far off his line to get lobbed from 15 yards, but he counteracted. Was a great finish, which it was, to be fair. I think one of the highlights was that day James Teelan has arguably been our best player in this last few games. He's been our one sort of shining light, if you like. That day particularly, he was the biggest threat. All afternoon, scored a cracking second goal. Have to mention goalkeeping coach Damien McCarry in this one. I think Damien nipped off to the toilet, and about 5 minutes before James scored what proved to be the winning goal, it was a ball played over the top. James was going through one-on-one with the keeper, touches it past him. It was a bouncing ball, keeper's out, I guess, touches it past him. Guy is able to get back and clear it off the line. And we were thinking, unlucky James, to which Damien kindly disagreed in so many words. There was a few swear words going, he's got to be finishing them, F this, F that. And then he was still standing beside me, and James went to shoot shortly after with his left foot. He goes, you don't have a left foot, put it on your right foot. To which then James then turned on and scored with his left foot, an absolute clinker afterwards. So I think Damien was rather humble later on that evening. But James was a standout that game. Institute, when they scored, sat back. We had a lot of possession and we eventually broke them down, but it would have been a game, would have been a travesty if we hadn't won.
Yeah. Well, James has done super. I think we said a few weeks ago on the podcast, maybe the last one, the one before, that if he could put, if he get his finishing touch, then he would pretty much have the complete package, and he seems to have that now. He's scored in his the last few games. He's got quite a few goals, so it's good to see him add that dimension to his game, which is making him the standout player for us, I think, at the minute.
Yeah,
and probably has been all season. The speed and just his low centre of gravity and how quickly he goes past people. He can tear people apart on his day.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see him actually score goals, and it was good. I was actually sick. I couldn't go up to the Brandywell, but sitting at home, it was nice to see his name pop up on the score sheet.
Yeah, no, he's been definitely, I think, probably our best player of the last month or so, and long may it continue. We'll brush briefly over the two drawn matches with Loughgall and Dundela. Again, there were matches where there was sort of a lot of huff and puff and not really a whole lot of quality. But moving quickly on to
I don't want to talk about them.
No, I know. I think it's just they're that nondescript that I'm struggling to remember them nearly.
Yeah.
The most recent game was obviously the Dergsview match last Friday night. Beaten 2-1. One of those games, it was similar enough. The second half certainly was similar enough to a lot of that Institute game where we had so much possession. And we probably moved the ball better against Stute and tried to play through the lines and try to play on the ground, whereas Dergsview we sort of got stuck in playing them in their own game and playing diagonal balls and high balls into the box. Just didn't really work. Now I get in late and I missed the first goal, and I obviously saw it back, and defensively we'll be disappointed with how it was conceded. Set piece and just a simple cross and a header in. The second one, look, could there have been a foul, Ryan McGivern in the middle of the pitch, but even at that, the guy was able to run straight through 30 yards and play it past Davey. He didn't really have any chance.
To be fair, he took his goal quite well.
He did. He took a finish well. I mean, sometimes when you have too much time to think, you can mess those up. But they were a much improved side from the team that we beat 2-0 up there. But I thought, I suppose the big talking point was Darren took off Decky Carville and Fra Brennan, both in midfield, after about 35-37 minutes, I think it was. Now, to be fair to them, I don't know, I'm not going to single any players out, but obviously they're going to get mentioned because they were taken off, and it's unusual to see two substitutes made, for tactical reasons in the first half. I think if everybody's honest enough, it could have been anybody. At that point, Jimmy Walker and Mark Hughes come on in their place. Probably able to keep a hold of the ball a bit better, but it just wasn't happening for the two boys. But as I said, I think they would know. Yes, they didn't perform to anywhere near their capabilities, but at the same time, I think the rest of the boys would be honest enough and say they weren't up to speed either. Yeah,
it was a very frustrating night in that Friday nights for us, as we've discussed, are big because we tend to get bigger crowds down because more availability, they've got time to come down, and Friday nights are our window of opportunity to actually convince people why they should be coming down here to watch football. And on that performance, I'm just glad that we're doing the podcast nearly a week later, because on Friday night I was so pissed off with the result and the performance, not the result. Okay, you lose and you can be annoyed, but that performance, even if we had won, I think I still would be annoyed at just how poorly we had played. We didn't deserve anything from the game, I didn't think.
No.
And with all respect to Dergsview, and we've gone up there and they make it difficult for you, but they should not be controlling the first half of the game at the showgrounds against us, which they did. Every time they had the ball, they looked dangerous with it. They were counter attacking brilliantly down this side here. Into the shed end, and it felt like it could have been 3 or 4-0 at one point. I remember I was sitting up here watching the game thinking, what the hell is going on here? It just felt like we were losing control completely all over the place, and it could have been bad. Now we James pull it back a goal before half time, give you hope, but it was a false dawn, because really the second half just petered out into nothing from what I can remember. It was not many memorable moments in the second half. Well,
their keeper didn't have one save to make. The one bit they had to do was the mistake that led to James's goal. And the second half we didn't test him at all, and particularly given the fact they had made that mistake in the first half, you're thinking we'll put him under a better pressure because he could be ropey. And he turned out and he celebrated up to the Newry fans after the game, because we were giving him a bit of grief. I mean, some of the young lads were giving the referee plenty of stick, and while the referee has notoriously over the years not been very kind to us. You know, it certainly wasn't the referee that cost us that game. Yes, he might have cost us, might have been a few decisions that could have made a difference, but you know, we didn't. You said we didn't deserve anything out of it.
Yeah, I think just the worry is that we've spoken about, you know, it's a team full of leaders and there's a team full of experience there, but on Friday night there was a complete lack of both. And we looked like we had no leaders on the pitch on Friday night, which is a real concern. We started off so well at the start of the season. What did we win? 6 out of 6. And, you know, it looked like this was going to be easy. That consistency. What's the point in winning your first 6 games if then you go on your next run of 6 and you win 2 and you draw 1? You know, you need to have that consistency. And what we've done within that period is the last time we played Ards, we ended up 2 points clear that night. We went 5 points clear the following weekend. The way it sits at the minute is if we lose Friday night, we're 5 points behind Ards. That's a 10-point swing at this point this season. Like you just can't afford to slip up like that. And if you fancy yourself as potential champions or as potentially getting out of this league, you need to be showing that kind of domination early in the season, and you can't be letting leads like that slip, because you're not going to have another opportunity to do that. Yeah,
consistency is key. I think the sort of maybe critically analyse it in a sort of a more minute detail, and it's not sort of singling any players out, or certainly not singling Darren out, but you know, I think we've watched enough matches, and Darren will be well aware that we would like to think we'll be able to sort of, you know, give our opinions. I think that the two things that struck me particularly about Friday night was, if we remember back to that Derby away game, Benny Igahan scored the first goal on Friday night. Big strapping centre forward, big physical guy. Up at Derby, Engine marked him, and Engine pretty much got stuck into him from the word go. Didn't give him an inch, and Benny Igahan was taken off after about an hour and didn't feature. For some reason he was moved, not moved, but Engine wasn't on him on Friday night. Now, whatever the reason for that was, I just think, you know, if something's not broken, don't fix it.
And particularly for a striker, if you have a defender who got inside your head before, you never want to see him again. So,
and I think the other sort of striking point was, and it relates to Fra and Decky being taken off, you know, before half time, was obviously you've got Jimmy and Husey coming on, who would probably be better ball players, and probably, you know, everybody would readily admit that. You know, we looked like we were scared coming out from the back and playing the ball in the midfield, because it wasn't sticking, it was coming straight back at the defence. So, you know, they're bringing the two lads on, and that seemed to settle it down a wee bit, but you know, unfortunately by that point the damage was done, and it was a big sort of ask to haul it back from there. I think there's a question probably needs to be asked of Samuel McLevine, who started off the season first and centre midfield. His last start, if I'm correct, and somebody feel free to correct me, was that game away at Derby, where I thought he played pretty well. He obviously got married after that. He missed the game against Ards on the Friday night, which we won. Hasn't been able to get his place back since, which happens in every team. But you know, if you're looking for somebody to put their foot in the ball and be able to move it around, especially in tight situations, yes, he had a couple of poor games earlier in the season, but I think he's got maybe something like 10 or 20 minutes of game time since that Derby game. I'm just sort of wondering what the issue, whether there's something else going on. I'm sure there's not. I'm not trying to hint that there is, but you know, if things aren't working in midfield, you know, you need to look to what other options you have. You know, I don't know whether it's his fitness, whether he's carrying a knock, and I'll hold my hands up if that's the case. But you know, there are a number of different options that I think we can utilise that maybe we haven't done. You know, we need to probably get Philly Donnelly back in harness again. Thomas Locker's coming back from injury and he's still not fully fit, but is getting there. John McGovern's at a heavy workload over the last while being away with the Northern Ireland under-21s. But the thing I mentioned probably the last 2 or 3 games as well is that when we're not creating a whole lot, you're getting Dingo dropping so deep to pick up the ball, John dropping deep to pick up the ball, because they want to be in the ball and they want to create things, which is great if you've got the likes of Thomas able to bomb beyond him, James Taylor able to bomb beyond him,
or big Mark up front as well.
Yeah, or Philly Donnelly, boys coming from behind them. That's not happening, so we're ending up, you know, we're light up front because the boys are dropping back and pick up the ball, and it's not their fault. So look, we're not tactical not tactical geniuses here, and I'm not claiming to be, but you know, so Darren's the one with the pro license. So I mean, it's just sort of, there's things that sort of seem to be patterns happening, and you know, look, I have absolutely no doubt that we're going to come off the back of this sort of relatively poor run and go and win on Friday night. I genuinely believe that, because we're more than capable of it, and I just sort of think that when we need to pick ourselves up, out of a bad run. You know, you do it against the big teams and do it against your biggest challengers. I think we will do it on Friday night. So I suppose that segues nicely into the Ards game.
It does. Well, I suppose Ards was the kind of the big game that we won at the start of the season, and it was the start of this bad run. So hopefully beat Ards on Friday night, and it's the start of a good run again. Yeah, that's a nice way to maybe bookend it. Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going down. I like going down to Bangor. It's always a good ground. I've got great memories of down there, particularly when we came back against Bangor in the Premier Intermediate League. Just I think of that every time I go down there. And then was it last year, the season before, we won 3-0 very early in the season. I think Lee Duffy, that was one of his first games. Yeah. And Adam
his debut.
At his debut, yeah. So that was, we've got good memories down there. We get good results in recent history anyway. But it'd be nice to go down there on a Friday night, bring a good crowd, and hopefully get the team back to we've won games, but I mean winning ways and like, okay, this is it now. Let's get a bit of consistency and let's get a run going.
I think the one thing probably about Ards, and again, the way I referenced back to the Derrickview game, the previous match, looking at the previous Ards game, if we remember back to that, it's as, and I don't say this lightly, it's probably as dirty an Ards team as we've seen in a long time. They're a good footballing team, but they kicked us up and down the pitch that night. Now, to be fair, we stood up to it, and it was pleasing to see, because it's not always been the case with not just this Newry team, but Newry teams down throughout the years, for going back 20 years. So the boys know that it's going to be put up to them on Friday night. The Ards are going to be looking at us going, they're in a bad run, we're 2 point scares. You said they can go 5 clear and not put us out of it, but certainly open up that gap and then look to build on it the way we didn't do earlier in the season. So there's nobody's going to underestimate what's coming on Friday night. It's Ards their home patch. They'll have a decent support with them. The weather won't play a part because it's an artificial surface. It's lashing at the minute. If it was out there, it would be the pitch would cut up big time. It's, as I look at it, as an opportunity. Draw a line under what's gone on in the last sort of 5-6 weeks. Yes, take the positives from like the Anna game and the Stute game, but we know what we're coming up against. It could be another statement win. Do you know what I mean? If you can go and beat your biggest rivals twice in your first 2 games and go back to the top of the table, and you go, right, here we are, we're back to the top of the table, let's not this up again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll bleep that, will we?
You can bleep it if you want.
No, you're 100% right. And I always try to be very optimistic. I think football fans are eternal pessimists and eternal optimists at the same
We know
time.
there's optimism and there's Ali's optimism.
Yeah, but I am really optimistic, and we always tend to hit a bad slump around about November time. And I don't know what it is. It's just over the past few years, it seems to be the month. Hopefully we've hit it a month early this year.
I was just about to say, don't tell Ali it's not November till next week.
And we can maybe get past it and turn around. But I'm confident. I think, not making any predictions for Friday night. Don't know what will happen. It'll probably feel a bit more like a cup match, actually, because there's so much at stake. But I'm confident that we'll turn it around before Christmas. And, over that important period where you do have quite a few games, that we can maybe get ourselves back in front and just edge out in front, because that's what you need at this point. We've been dragged back into the pack, and it will be a dogfight to get your nose in front and try to stay there is the key thing now. But what we can't do is lose touch with the likes of Ards, so a result is a must on Friday.
I think another thing, leading on from that, I don't want to touch on, a few supporters that I've spoken to over the last few weeks saying that it's not necessarily being pessimistic, but it's sort of maybe it is like a pessimist is never disappointed type of thing, and saying that we're not quite as good as we were made out to be. I absolutely wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think we are. I think we're as good as we showed earlier in the season. I think we don't go and win those first 6 games and win them well and win them in different ways, either beating teams comfortably or grinding out wins, or playing some slick football, or having to get into a dogfight. We did all of those in the first 6 games. I genuinely wholeheartedly believe that we are as good as we sort of said that we are at the start of the season. I just think we are going through that bit of a lull. That's why I do believe that Friday night can be a catalyst just to sort of kickstart the season again, if you like. And let's be honest, we've gone through a bad run, and we still have an opportunity to win one game and go back to the top of the table. You know, it would be different if we had lost 5 in a row and we're sitting mid-table. You know, things need to be put into perspective. The phrase Darren uses all the time: we never get too high when we win, or we never get too low when we lose. And it's the biggest footballing cliche, and I hate when he uses it when I interview him. But it's a true. The cliches generally are there for a reason. It's a fair point.
But look at us at the Championship a few years ago. You know, we came from mid-table. What was it, 15, 16 games on that we won in a row, or we're unbeaten.
21 games unbeaten.
21 games unbeaten. I think we won 15 in a row, and we ended up back up there. So it just shows you it can happen at any point, and it can happen for any team as well. That's the danger of this league. But like you said, I think we're in a good position, and my confidence has never waned from day one. As a football fan, of course, you get disappointed, and it feels like the end of the world when you lose a game and you have a bad performance. But thankfully, football's not like most other sports. You've got a game usually 2 days later or a week later to get back into it and right those wrongs. So let's do it Friday night. 3 points. And
if any of the supporters, well, I like to think that some of the supporters are watching this, or else we'll have no viewers. But make sure you get in your numbers on Friday night. It's a big game. The boys need your support, and you know, our away support, whilst is lesser in numbers, you know, than our home support, obviously, it's generally louder, it's more vocal, more boisterous. I'm not saying that's anything to do with alcohol whatsoever, but you know, if there's ever a time for the boys to come out in force and get behind the lads, it's Friday night, because I think it could be a massive one. You know, it's a massive game as it stands, but it could be a massive one if we come out in the right end of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a couple of other things to touch on. I mentioned earlier John McGovern, after Friday night's game against Derbyview. You know, fair play to him. He probably wanted to go home after such a bad defeat, but him and his family came into the social club, and the match sponsors of the First Newry Northern Ireland Supporters Club, of which my good friend Alistair here is one of the head honchos in, I believe. They made a presentation to John on his under-21 caps. So for those who don't know, he got selected for the Northern Ireland under-21s and came on in both games, once away to Russia and then away to Spain. By all accounts, acquitted himself pretty well. Hopefully, you know, he's obviously impressed the manager, you know, to get selected. Hopefully he's done enough to get selected for the next run of games. I think they're next month. So I mean, it's the last player we had playing for under-21s while at Newry was Richard Clark. John's very much in the same mould in terms of his attitude and his dedication and how he conducts himself. You know, everybody knows he's a great lad. It's great to see him get international honours. It's more than deserved. Yeah, from the Northern Ireland Supporters Club point of view, we just wanted to recognise that for John. You know, it doesn't happen all the time down here for us. Like Richard Clark, as you said, was maybe 2006 or 7, something like that. So you know, that's quite a long time for our next player to be brought up to that level. But also just to recognise the fact that he plays for Newry City in the Championship in Northern Ireland, but he's up against boys who are playing in Barcelona's academies and possibly Real Madrid's academies in the Spain team, and also even in his Northern Ireland squad there's boys there in Liverpool and Man United and Rangers, Celtic. You know, so the fact that he's been recognised for playing his local level, and it shows that playing at this level does pay off for people. You know, we've seen it with Gareth McCauley, we've seen it with Stuart Dallas. I thought you were going to say my name there. No, that one game you played down here that you still cling on to. But no, you know, we've seen that there is a pathway for that. So we just wanted to recognise it for John, but also as the club, I think we should be very proud that we do have a player here who's at that level and is representing the country. And I think if anybody saw the video clip, I think it was when they were in Russia, of the players training, and the Northern Ireland official Twitter put it up, of John hitting a half volley from about 25 yards in the top corner and just running away jogging away with a wry grin on his face, to which he probably received umpteen texts from people connecting on Newry going, haven't seen you do that in a blue and white shirt, like what's going on there, you know. So yeah, John, we're waiting for that one. If you can recreate that one anytime soon, probably Friday night, that would be great. But yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, we obviously the clubs get members of the supporters club said a few words the other night, and you know, John follows in Ryan McGivern, obviously, who's a former 21 caps I think for Northern Ireland, is playing here currently. With Pat Jennings obviously is the big one that, you know, played for Newry in his youth and then went over to England. Colin Clark as well, and Peter McParland, who played in the 1958 World Cup. So you know, it's not, we haven't had sort of guys that have maybe had bit part careers with Northern Ireland, with guys that have established themselves and run of games and played in big games. So you know, nothing would please, I think, everybody in Newry and anybody that knows John more than if he progressed. Hopefully he progresses with us, but if he goes on to bigger and better things, which he's undoubtedly capable of doing, and you know, makes his full international debut, be really, really proud for everybody, I think. Absolutely, yeah. So that rounds off part 1 of episode 5 of the podcast. We'll be back with part 2 very soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Cheers.